Welcome to Florida Focus, a college football podcast. We have a lifetime Florida State Seminole fan, that's me, Brandon, and a lifetime Florida Gator fan, that's my co-host, Chris. And we're putting aside our differences to bring you the fantastic world of college football throughout the Sunshine State. Today, Chris and I wanted to give you a few reminders about some upcoming things for the show. We wanted to give a couple of shout-outs to some other podcasts and to some fans. And we wanted to give you some reminders of the things and other ways to participate. So thank you for tuning in today. The first thing that Chris and I wanted to let you know is that we have come upon and become huge fans of a new podcast, and that is called Sunshine State of Mind. They can be found at Florida Podcast on Twitter, and we were recently mentioned on episode 71 of their show, and I'll put a link to the show notes for that, because we have become a Patreon. Of course, we cover college football throughout the entire state of Florida, but on the Sunshine State of Mind podcast, they are very good about giving you ideas for how to entertain yourself and what to do around the state of Florida. There's so much that the state has to offer, from the Panhandle to the Central Florida area down to South Florida, different terrains, different entertainment, and they cover it all. So we've actually become a Patreon of theirs. We're such a fan of the show and everything that they're about. So we do very much encourage you to take a listen on some of the things that they mentioned about us. And if you're a Floridian, just go ahead and subscribe to that podcast. They're very, very good. And heck, Chris and I have even debated the idea of doing a show where we talk about some of the fun things that we've come across as Floridians, and some things that maybe, as the other podcast mentions from time to time, things that maybe are hidden gems and we don't want the public to know, but we'd like to share with you anyway. So that's the first thing. Sunshine State of Mind, go ahead and give them a listen. Secondly, we want to say thank you to Jarad, who was on our recruiting episodes. We recapped all of the recruiting synopses for all 7 schools. So thank you, Jarad. I'll include his Twitter handle, which he's okay with us sharing, in the show notes, at JRadHallelujah, if you want to give him a follow. We also do want to let you know that coming up, I think tomorrow, March 22nd, Chris and I have submitted our show to be reviewed by a Hall of Fame podcaster. So Dave Jackson, who runs the Podcast Rodeo Show, among others, will be reviewing this podcast. So to quote him, the Podcast Rodeo Show is where he grabs a podcast, he listens to the intro, and he hangs on as long as he can to give some honest feedback. So we very much look forward to that. I'll also put a link in the show notes too, where you can listen to that episode. So that's the Podcast Rodeo Show. The website there is podcastrodeoshow.com. So looking forward to that feedback from Dave Jackson. As a reminder, we posed a question to all of our listeners in our last episode, and that is, if you were a 5-star recruit, what coach would you want recruiting you and why? We do not require that this be a Florida coach. We do ask that it be a current coach. That's the only thing that we're asking. So we ask that you submit that to us. You can record a voice memo. You can send that to us. I won't provide Chris and I's cell phone numbers, but if you have them already, you can just leave that information on a voicemail. That'll be fine too. We do ask that these be done by April 7th, so we can get this put together. We're looking to do some other episodes in April, and we want to get this done and give me time to get it put together. So April 7th, if you are a 5-star recruit, what coach would you want recruiting you and why? We are releasing this episode today on the 1-year anniversary of our show. So that is 1 year of Florida Focus, a college football podcast. This couldn't be done without you. Thank you to the fans and the subscribers. If you're wandering onto this podcast, we would very much appreciate your feedback, and we would encourage you to go listen to our catalog. We've covered anything from our favorite wide receivers to weekly recaps of every single school throughout the entire week of the college football season from 2018. We have gone through Chuck Lovett from the Recruiting Blueprint podcast, who was a guest on the show. We actually had a guest from the College Football Podcast, episode 9 of the show, I believe. And we've had a lot of fun together, and we certainly feel like we've improved throughout this 1 year, and that's because of all the listenership and all of the feedback, emails, Facebook messages, tweets that we've received. So couldn't be done without you. So we thank you for that. So 1 year and many more to come. Chris and I also want to let you know that we're looking into doing a preview episode for the AAF, which is the Alliance of American Football. The team that would most affect us, and we're going to talk about the most, would be the Orlando Apollos. Just a real quick recap, the Alliance of American Football is a league where players that are hoping to go to the NFL, I guess is the best way to describe it, will come in They will be given a 3-year contract, and 2 things will exist with that contract. Number 1, it's paid out in increments over 3 years. And number 2, they can escape to the NFL anytime that they wish. So I think it's beneficial. The third part of that is that players get post-college tuition, so they can actually continue their college degree. So I feel like it's a great attempt, and the league is started by Bill Polian and Hines Ward. It's got a lot of supporting cast, including CBS Sports. So the way that the Orlando Apollos get their players would be from the Florida universities. That would be Bethune-Cookman, UF, FAMU, FAU, FIU, FSU, even Florida Tech, which is located on the coast, I believe, in Melbourne and Palm Bay area. University of Jacksonville, the Miami Hurricanes, Stetson, the Gators, UCF, and then even West Florida. They can also draw from anybody who has spent time with the Miami Dolphins, New York Giants, New York Jets, or Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And that would include practice squad or the full roster. So we look to really dive into this a little bit because there are a lot of players that went to the universities we cover that have given them a second chance, and sometimes we'll even use this as a stepping stone to the NFL. So it's pretty exciting. If you haven't seen an AAF game, I encourage you to check it out. You can go to aaf.com for more information. There's fantasy aspects to it. The Orlando Apollos play at the Spectrum Stadium, which is at the home of the UCF Knights. And there's just a lot of exciting things, including the head coach, Steve Spurrier, head ball coach, is the head coach of the Orlando Apollos, so he's always entertaining, as you know. So we hope to do that soon. Chris and I will also, most likely in the late April area, give you a preview/recap of the spring games. So I know that there are several schools we cover, but I know off the top of my head, Florida State has their spring game April 6th, and the Gators have theirs April 13th. So we will hope to do a preview. No guarantees on that, as Chris is a little bit ill, which is why I'm running solo today. So we hope to get that out to you. If not, you can expect a full recap of at least both those schools and or the other schools. So thank you again for the listen. Please check out the other shows that we mentioned. Please continue to send in your feedback. And again, we look forward to all of your reviews, your emails, however you want to reach out to us. Our website, floridafocuspodcast.com. If you go there, however you want to reach out to us, your favorite way, that would be great. We also have a Patreon. That is patreon.com/FloridaFocusPodcast. Again, as a reminder, we have 2 tiers. The first one is $1 a month. That'll get you a handwritten thank you note. You will get a free gift from our sponsor and our eternal gratitude. If you're a $5 a month Patreon, you will be considered as a guest for our show. We will give you a welcome package, as well as thank you note and everything else included in the $1 level. So thank you again for the support and the love. We appreciate everything you do for us. This is Brandon saying, go Noles.